Rain fell in ribbons that night, muted and relentless, pooling along the edges of my shoes and dripping off the fringe of my scarf. I huddled beneath the flimsy awning beside Jehangir Art Gallery, shivering, the last embers of hope curling in my chest. The rejection letter, embossed with the gallery's logo, felt heavier than the monsoon air in my palm. "We regret to inform you," I'd stopped reading after the second line, words blurred, a mess of polite decline. It wasn't a gallery for musicians, but I'd sent an application anyway, hoping my music, the tabla pieces recorded over scratchy home video and linked through my phone, would stir something in the art world. Instead, the doors had shut before they'd even opened. I clutched the letter tighter and tried to remember my way back. The city's lights glistened on the wet pavement, fractured and scattered, like all my half-baked chances. Passers-by hurried past, faces neutral, umbrellas bobbing. My phone buzzed in my jacket pocket, my mother's number again. She'd called twice already, filled my voicemail with her soft, disappointed questions. "Still on about this music business?" she'd asked the week prior as I rolled chapatis at the dinner table. "Beta, why can't you do something sensible? Try for a government job. At least your in-laws would stop asking." That last jab always hurt. She spoke for the whole family, my sister and her engineer husband, my uncles, even my pan-chewing neighbor who gave me pitying glances. At 27, I still played my tabla, toes pressed to the cold floor of our Borivali flat, cramping up my fingers at midnight to record one more song. It was not what people called dignified. I pulled my scarf tighter and set off into the downpour. I remembered suddenly the first time I'd played for an audience, local Ganpati celebrations on our street, a makeshift stage lined with plastic flowers. No one clapped then either, only laughter. My cousin Vikram's half-whispered, "He thinks he's Zakir Hussain," shaking through the crowd. By the time I reached the bus stop, my shoes squelched. I boarded, dripping, ignored by the other passengers. The city was always unknowable in the rain, dark but alive, full of a music that twisted just out of reach. When I unlocked our flat's gate, the hall light flicked on. My mother stood there, her silk nightgown wrapped tightly, lips drawn thin. She glanced at the wet paper in my hand, not asking but knowing. My father's newspaper rustled in the next room. "They said no again," I told her, voice raw. "I tried everything." She opened her mouth, hesitated, then spoke softly. "Beta, enough now, there's still the exams, the BMC openings, I can." "There's nothing else I want," my voice cracked. She looked away, twisting a bangle. I dried my tabla that night, humming quietly so no one would come. Rain pattered against the window, and I felt myself shrinking, doubt rooting deep and hard. No gallery, no concert hall, no teacher wanted an unpolished kid from the suburbs. I wondered if the city was simply too vast or if I was simply too small for it. But in the murky space before sleep, some clarity carved out a sliver inside. Music wasn't a career for me, it was the marrow of everything left. If I quit, I'd lose not just purpose but myself. The following weeks pulled on, each indistinguishable: job postings, family taunts, more failed auditions. I taught part-time in a school, banging the same rhythms into the little heads, grateful for their unfiltered awe. Every Friday, I walked to the bandstand and played for strangers, earning coins or comments or sometimes nothing at all. A few months into that rhythm, a video clip of my set, posted quietly on YouTube, caught the eye of a jazz guitarist traveling through Mumbai. He emailed me out of nowhere, "I like what you're doing. Want to collaborate?" I almost deleted the message, thinking it a prank. I didn't know how to blend his world with mine, but he insisted, showing up with a battered Stratocaster and a sketchbook of half-written charts. Together, we cobbled things together, tabla and guitar weaving through the squalid echoes of train horns and Chewala calls. We played hotel lobbies and one live radio gig. People clapped, a few even stood up, and the show was recorded by a gruff American with a portable mic. Days passed, but things changed, small, then big. The video of that performance was picked up by a journalist, then a record label in Austria. Offers trickled, cautious but real, and the guitarist urged me to audition, insisting I send my solo work to every open slot. When I got a call to join an avant-garde festival in Berlin, I almost laughed. I left Mumbai with 2 bags, my tabla, and a heart cracked wide with hope and terror. Standing in the terminal, my father shook my hand, awkward, stiff but real. My mother dabbed at her eyes and said, "Call us when you land." There was pride there, tempered with fear, but pride nonetheless. Berlin was cold, Spartan, and impossibly awake with possibility. For the first time, no one asked me to play covers or make it filmy. Late-night gigs became festival showcases. I met cellists from Warsaw, drummers from Lagos, and a Carnatic Veena artist from Chennai who spoke with a softness I hadn't felt in years. With each stage, my anxieties peeled away. I sent money home, enough that my parents could finally fix the cracked tiles in the kitchen. I called after every major show and sent pictures, me grinning beneath stage lights, eyes bright. Each time my mother's voice grew warmer, her questions gentler. My father stopped asking about exams. Months blurred into years. One album followed another, tabla threaded with jazz, with synths, with haunting vocals that I'd never imagined could belong to me. Critics wrote kind words in languages I barely understood, but there was always the dull ache of return, the sense that success, no matter how sweet, needed to be heard at home. No one in Mumbai had seen me perform, not truly. My cousins sometimes forwarded my articles or tagged me with fake enthusiasm, but none of it felt tangible. 4 years after I left, I was invited to perform at the Royal Opera House, back in Mumbai, back in the city that had raised me. The organizers wanted a fusion evening, and word had gotten out about the local kid who made it big abroad. They offered 2 nights solo with a supporting ensemble, everything within me twisted. It felt like standing at the edge of some deep, dark chasm, one I knew I had to leap across. Days before the show, anxiety crept in. I walked the streets in Antari, visiting friends, buying pani puri from the cart I loved as a child. Returning made everything sharper, lamplight on chipped walls, the scent of rain-damp earth, the rattle of distant trains. My mother greeted me at the airport, tears unchecked, pulling me into her arms. At home, the flat looked smaller. My father's hair was greyer, his movements slower. He watched me with a careful detachment, unsure where to put his pride. The gossip started quickly. Aunties lingered in the stairwell. Uncles asked only about my foreign contacts. Vikram, now a paunchy hardware store owner, arrived at the flat the night before the concert. "So you're playing at the Opera House?" He grinned, mocking for old time's sake. "Does anyone here even care about tabla, or will you need to wear a suit and tie?" Behind his jokes, I caught a glimmer of envy, maybe respect, but buried deep. My mother scolded him, telling him for once that not everyone had to run a shop. "The world out there is different now. You'll see," she said, glancing at me with tremulous pride. I tried to sleep but failed, nerves coiled tightly in my gut. I watched the ceiling fan spin, remembered every stinging remark from childhood, every cold shoulder at family gatherings. The afternoon of the concert, clouds rolled in low over Marine Drive. My dress curtain hung stiff in the closet. In the mirror, my beard looked fuller than before, my eyes sunken and wise. My father lingered in the doorway. "Nervous?" Terrified, I grinned, and he smiled, the first smile I remembered in years. They both came dressed in their finest, my mother in sky blue silk, my father's jacket tight around his shoulders. My sister brought her husband and their little boy, who clung shyly to her sari. Even Vikram bought a ticket, probably out of curiosity. The opera house was all gold and velvet and light, grander than anything I'd known. Backstage, the other musicians tuned in careful harmony. The air buzzed with anticipation. The house lights dimmed. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. My name was called not as an afterthought or a novelty, but as the headliner. I walked out blinded by stage spots, tabla in hand, silence, then applause, hesitant, then swelling. I sat cross-legged, fingers poised, letting the hush settle thickly. I remembered that old embarrassment. Gamparty Pandal, the giggling behind my back. I pressed my eyes closed, picturing my mother's tired face in the second row, and I played. Every noise of the city seeped into my hands. Rickshaws sputtering, rain against glass, my father's heavy footsteps, children's laughter chasing stray dogs on the street. The groove grew complex, riffs tumbling, the pace rising and easing, always returning to the simple heartbeats learned long before. The ensemble followed, saxophone and veena entwining, building a structure so delicate it seemed about to collapse, and then, somehow soaring. In the audience, I spotted my family, stunned for once into genuine wonder. My mother leaned forward, forgetting to breathe. My father's eyes glistened suspiciously. Even Vikram, usually so quick with his jokes, sat slack-jawed. Between pieces, I spoke haltingly about growing up in Borivali, about the rain and the crowds and the feeling of being impossibly small. I told them about the gallery rejection, about the bus rides home. The crowd grew quiet, then rapturous. Someone started a standing ovation at the end, a wave that rippled through the rows. Backstage, I collapsed in a heap, the sweat sticky on my brow. The other musicians clapped me on the back. My phone blared with messages, family and friends, and distant journalists all clamoring for a word. When I emerged, my family was waiting. My father hugged me, awkward but fierce, his hand trembling on my shoulder. "You did it," he whispered, voice cracking. I had never heard him sound so small or so proud. My mother cried in earnest, cheeks streaked with kohl. "Everyone saw, Beta, the whole world. I am sorry, we all are." Outside, the sky was clear again, the rain finished. Vikram skipped up, his smile soft and genuine. "Abby, you're famous now, yeah. Next time, take me with you. We'll show these foreigners our Mumbai style, no." I laughed, the sound free for the first time. "You can carry my tablet." "Deal." That night, I wandered along Marine Drive, the waves slapping against the seawall in rhythm. People stared at me, maybe recognizing me, maybe not. The city felt different, golden in the lamplight. The pang of rejection was gone, replaced by something steadier, rooted in my skin. This was home, it always would be. As I crossed the street back toward the fading lights, I realized my family's pride, the community's shock, none of it was as sweet as the music itself. That was the secret. I had returned carrying my own proof, each note a quiet, certain answer to every doubt, and this time the applause did not ring hollow. I let it echo, filling me up, a promise kept to the boy who played in the rain.